Hey, Colabcoaching yet again to share some wise words of wisdom for the week. Week number 2 of the vulnerability series. So excited to get into this week because if you know or you don't know, week 2 we get a little bit deeper than week 1. Week 1 is the introduction. Week 2 we go a little bit deeper as far as the concept of vulnerability. So the question slash that I have for you for this week is who to be vulnerable with, who should you be vulnerable with, who you should not be vulnerable with. We're going to get all into that. So, vulnerability, as I said last week, is just you being able to share parts of yourself, your past, your present, your future, your ideas, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, all that good stuff. But, as I said last week, trust is a major factor. You have to be trusting of that person before you are able to share who you are and be vulnerable with that person, because that's when pain and hurt and situations that you wish you didn't get into happen, and then you start to have regrets and you start to build those walls and you start to be less trusting of people because you were vulnerable with one person and they misused it or took that information, ran with it, or manipulated it to be not in your favor. Now, who you should be trust you should trust is based on you. Who you should trust is based on you. Now, I'm not saying that every person knows how to trust people the right way. I'm not saying that because that's not true. What I am saying is that there are ways to trust people the right way so you could be vulnerable with them. Now, the easiest thing is to make a list. I know is I don't want to make a list. I don't want to have a plan. I don't want to have strategies. But I'm saying that make a mental note. Make a mental note. If you want to write it down, write it down. If you don't, that's okay. But make a mental note in realizing who you can trust and what does trust mean. Because you have to be self-aware. You have to be self-aware of what information you're sharing with people, what you're sharing with social media, what you're sharing with people around you, because it can be used against you if you're sharing it with the wrong people. Trust is a big factor, at least to me, because if you don't have trust in that person, you wouldn't be sharing things with them. Let's put it simple example. If you did not trust a friend, maybe you consider them a quote unquote friend, but really they're an associate or a colleague in a sense. And you're not really close with them, but you guys will hang out. You haven't had any problems, but you wouldn't necessarily trust them with certain information about maybe your health situation crisis or something that's going on with your family, or things that are deep down that you haven't really resolved in your past, because that's not the level of conversation and level of companionship you have with that person. They're maybe a quote unquote friend, but you don't trust them on that level. You're not going to share every single, if all the single details with them, and provide every single little tidbit of who you are. No, you don't trust them yet. So that's how you should be able to determine if, okay, this person, I'm not that close with them, so I'm not going to share this with them. Or versus, another example, someone you know for 20 years, if you're 20 years plus, or someone you know for 10 or 5 years, and you guys been on vacations together, you guys been through difficult times together, you guys have breakups and makeups. This could be a friend, a family member, or a significant other, and they've been tested. They've been tested that you know you could trust them, and they trust you. You would be more inclined to be vulnerable with that person. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that person is not going to manipulate the situation or use your words against you and things like that in the future, because we don't know. But what we do know is that, okay, I made a criteria. I made a plan, a preventative plan. I made a list to help me ensure that that I am truly trusting of that person to be vulnerable with them. Now, it's easier for some people to be vulnerable than others, but what we all should have a clear understanding is that being vulnerable, it takes time. It takes time. Now, if you're a person that's vulnerable right away, kudos to you. Again, pain and hurt are right behind you if you are vulnerable to the wrong people, with the wrong people. But vulnerability takes time. It takes time, just like trust takes time, just like Love takes time. This all happens through communication, through interaction, through knowledge, through growth, through lessons. And this all has to be based on what you're willing to share and what you're willing to absorb. Because if someone is vulnerable with you, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be vulnerable with them. I know that's controversial, but if that person is vulnerable with you and expects you to be vulnerable with them and they don't have the right intentions, oh, I'm going to share this about, maybe they're comfortable with sharing something about them and they are happy to share that because they know that it's something that maybe they've dealt with before and they're completely fine with, or there's something that they're trying to get something out of you, and that's why they're sharing something about themselves so they can really get something else from you. This happens. Trust me, this happens. You never know what people are thinking. That does not mean, okay, well, this person has been vulnerable with me, so I have to go be vulnerable with them. No, no. Did that person meet that criteria? Have you known that person for X amount of years? Have you been in a situation with that person for X amount of years? Have you been friends with that person for X amount of years? Have you dealt with situations similar to this in the past? And can you honestly say that you trust that person? If that answer is no, do not be vulnerable with them. I know it's like, well, I'm in the heat of the moment and they're sharing with me and that means I have to share with them, right? No, no. Again, fear is real, hurt is real, pain is real. Just because someone is sharing something with you doesn't mean it's something that you have to equal them or you have to match them. Maybe you're not ready, and that's okay not to be ready. But you have to remember that being vulnerable is on your terms. Don't make anybody feel guilty of not of because you're not being vulnerable with them. As long as you know in your heart and your mind that, hey, I'm not saying I'm not going to be vulnerable with you, but there are things about me that I'm not willing to share yet. Give me some time. Now on the flip side, if you're just that person that's never vulnerable, then you have some more work to do. There is some more work that you need to do to understand that being vulnerable is beneficial with the right people. Again, I'm going to emphasize with the right people. It is hurtful if you're vulnerable with the wrong people, but it's also hurtful if you choose not to be vulnerable with the right people. And it could be a disconnect, and it can hurt your relationships, intimate relationships, it can hurt your friendships, and it can hurt your family relationships as well. And it can prevent you from having good, solid friendships in the future, good, solid relationships in the future. Simple as that. So, to put it plainly, who you should be vulnerable with. Make sure you have a criteria, a plan, or a list set of what it means to trust someone and what it means not to trust someone. If you are trusting of that person, it is okay to be vulnerable with them. But you should not be forced to be vulnerable with someone just because they're vulnerable with you. But also remember that if you choose not to be vulnerable with someone that you consider a significant other, a family, or a friend, that you have been battle tested, that you got went through situations and you choose not to be vulnerable with them, that can hurt you from having successful relationships in the future because that shows that you're not being vulnerable and that can hurt you in the long run. So it's always important to make sure you have a plan in place to make you aware of trust and vulnerability. Simple as that. So if you're struggling with this and learning how to be vulnerable and you're struggling with how to trust people, go ahead and message me, www.yourcolabcoach.com. Fill out that relationship checklist so we can pinpoint exactly the things that you're struggling with. And also sign up for that free 15-minute coaching session that we could talk about anything you want to talk about. And also to see if we are a good fit with each other to help each other. As I said, you're helping me as I'm helping you because I'm learning more about people and you are learning how to be a better person. Simple as that. So, Facebook Collab Coaching, Instagram Collab Coaching. All my series and all my videos are on YouTube, COLAB Coaching. Again, I wrote a book. Fresh Eyes Solve Problems Easier. The Self-Love Relationship Project is now available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, on DorrancePublishing.com. That's the publisher's website. Also, I did an audiobook. It's available on Audible, wherever you listen to audiobooks. And also on the audio publisher's website, which is Lantern Audio. Go ahead and leave a review. Go ahead and buy the book. Go ahead and listen to my voice, because I actually was the person that recorded the whole entire book, so you hear my voice. And let me know what you think. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.